Hi, this is Erwin Hipsman, and here with Val Geisler, one of the OGs in the customer marketing and advocacy world. She currently owns her own firm. We'll ask you about that in 1 second, but has been involved in customer content, email, advocacy, customer lifecycle marketing and retention, helping out with partner programs.
And well, what I'm doing now is really taking everything that I've spent the last several years doing and synthesizing it.
You rated voice of customer as number four,
Yeah.
and it turned out to be the number one thing. I'm curious, why did you put voice of customer where you did? Because we want to dig into voice of customer.
Well, it's interesting because I am such a big advocate of the voice of the customer. And I also think a lot of businesses, a lot of people can get really bogged down in the minutia, I guess. And the reason I ranked them life cycle first, then education, then advocacy, and voice of customer is because I feel like each of those feeds into the next. And so life cycle and education, um, I think initially need to come from the business level. So get life cycle started. I think too many people are just not doing anything with it.
Right.
We will do that eventually once we get voice of customer. And so I think sometimes voice of customer can be a crutch to not accomplishing those other things. And I would rather combine data of what we put out into the world. So life cycle, education, even advocacy. I'd rather take hard quantitative data from those pieces and combine them with the qualitative data of voice of customer. So I think it's voice of customer is very, very important. And I wouldn't let gathering it and synthesizing it stop you from getting something in place for those other areas so that you have both types of data to be able to create the best possible experience. And frankly, from like a job security perspective, if you're starting a new function and you're a new hire, you want to have quick early wins, right? And so being able to build out, hey, look, we've built the onboarding emails from Lifecycle, right? We have the customer education portal launched, and there's 2 courses in there, and these how many people are going through them. So you have data points to report on when you get those things done. And then you go back. Those should never be a one and done. You'll go back and iterate on them, and it also sets you up then to be able to say to your leadership team, and next we're going to collect voice of customer and pull that into all of this, right? I think in general in business, the more human elements are going to become even more important than ever before. So NPS and CSAT are great. Those are, in my opinion, quantitative data points. Those, sometimes you get some verbatims, but mostly those are, and they're also catching people at a certain time period, right? So they log into your app, they're frustrated about something, and they click 0 on your NPS, and that's not how they actually feel. It's how they feel in that moment. So I with AI pulling into everything. And there's even research from a lot of the leaders in the AI space who talk about empathy, being able to studying the humanities, uh, building your own individual thoughts and being able to communicate with people. You even see the top companies hiring very high paying roles in things like storytelling because they're finding that they're trying to do storytelling through AI and everyone's starting to sound the same and they want a really unique point of view, which is where voice of customer comes in. And the way that we can blend qualitative and quantitative and pulling that into the results that we can show for the business is, I think, something that everyone should be leaning into.
There's a lot of places to be listening to the individual, which is a little bit different than listening to the account.
Mm-hmm.
But is there almost too much signal? And how do how do you sort of avoid the noise of it? Because you get to be so much content coming in.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, there's a lot of noise in signals, right? So, and it's actually, I think it's a volume thing. So this is also a place where I see people get stuck is oh, I interviewed 10 customers and I see these trends, but let me interview 10 more or 20 more or run a survey to 1,000 people or, to then like validate what you're seeing, but you're already seeing these trends. And you don't have to dig through every piece of data to know what those are. Most of the time when I'm working with a client, 10 is kind of it. That's what I need in terms of interviews. If you get the right people, right? So if you choose from the right segments of customers and you pull in the right people to interview, you really don't need a ton to start to see those patterns show up. So there's a little book that I have that I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in my office here. It's called Just Enough Research. And I think that that is such a great mindset of when am I looking for signal, right? And at a certain point, it tips into noise. So it's not about a particular channel. It's not like the sales calls are noise or the NPS is thrown away or any of that. They all matter, but it's, I think, a volume game where you start chasing your own tail and that's where the noise happens. And I think that's really important in voice of customer too. And the only place where I will say is consistently noise is the noisy few. So those when we look at tickets, kind of, I always like to just maybe not completely discard, but just kind of skim through those 5 customers who send in a ticket once a week or more. Those are the customers like, okay, yes, they probably have some good feedback, right? But those noisy few can tend to drown out everything else. And it's also the one thing I want to point to for this audience is that these are the places where your work matters because the senior leadership team, the CEO, whoever in the business, they're looking at those noisy few. They're looking at the both on both ends of the spectrum, and they are missing the entire
Yeah,
middle. And
that's
that's
right.
where you can help surface the reality of the business, and save them from themselves.
And with that, thank you so much, Val.